Welcome to Offshoot, the Fident Capital podcast with host Kevin Choquette. Offshoot is a curiosity-driven conversation that features a wide range of real estate and business professionals. In each episode, we unpack the knowledge, vantage point, and domain expertise of our guests. Then, we move beyond the facts and figures and dive into the personal habits and mindset which allow them to be high performers in their respective field. This podcast's objective is simple: supporting entrepreneurs, fostering relationships, and uncovering meaningful conversations that positively impact business.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 9 of Offshoot with Bruce Stachenfeld. Bruce is an NYC-based lawyer running a boutique firm of 40 lawyers. From a difficult start in 1997 to now, Bruce has found his power niche, consummating joint venture equity deals, and become an effective leader to his pure-play, real estate-only team of lawyers. Bruce is at least 20 years my senior and brings a ton of experience and wisdom to the conversation. We could have carried on for at least another hour. I literally got through half the material I hope to cover. But Bruce is super busy, and I'm thrilled he shared this time with me and you. Listen in for some of the nuggets that Bruce shares and how he brings them to life. For example, drive your business with purpose and a vision. Let that become real for clients and employees, not just something on the wall of the conference room. Ranked by importance, focus on employees, then customers, then shareholders. Their growth mandate for finding talent, attract, retain, train. His leadership journey from brutal, potentially inappropriate honesty to leading with vision and conviction. Buying where there's less pressure and less appreciation for the nuance of a space like retail. How securing JV equity is like playing chess in the future in a space where relationship skills are critical. The business, personal, and legal issues all come together in a contract that won't be needed until things go sideways. Recourse as the hot potato, how it gets passed, how joint venture equity and banks look at it, and old retail versus new retail and the difference between them. Virtual offices will fail. There's no glue to keep the culture together and keep the man or woman inside the skill set happy and satisfied. Finally, we talk about artificial intelligence and where it might begin to have an impact in the commercial real estate space. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into my conversation with Bruce Stachenfeld. Bruce, also known as the real estate philosopher, is the founder, former managing director, and now chairman of Duval and Stachenfeld, a New York City-based real estate-only legal practice with about 50 lawyers serving all aspects of the real estate industry nationwide. It's from this station that he provides the email newsletter, The Real Estate Philosopher, which enjoys over 60,000 subscribers. Bruce is also an author with If You Want to Get Rich, Build a Power Niche, to his credit, and a new book on the horizon, The Real Estate Philosopher's Guide, which I believe will be released this fall. Bruce has a unique industry vantage point. He works with some of the smallest real estate shops with little more than a gleam in their eyes to some of the largest real estate institutions in the world and everything in between. He also spends time in the hallways, if you will, of New York City, which seems to be Mecca for all things capital and capitalism. That arena provides an incredible playground for Bruce's mind, where his curiosity, free thinking, and powers of observation find plenty to devour. Bruce established his firm with Patrick Duval and Terry Adler in 1997. He received a JD from Harvard Law School in 1983 and a BS from Tufts University in Massachusetts in 1979. Bruce is a student of business and real estate. He is married, and he's completed at least one Ironman, the World Championship in Kona, in 2007. Bruce is the first guest I've had with whom I don't have any pre-existing relationship. So, Bruce, I'll try to stay on my best behavior, and welcome to the show.
Well, Kevin, thanks for having me. That was a really nice introduction. And the thing I brag about the most in the world is there was 2 Ironmans, but full disclosure, I didn't do very well. So I'm not much of an athlete. But thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you for taking the time. And I think if you complete an Ironman, that's enough. Most people on the planet can't really make themselves take that kind of pursuit seriously. But look, I'm very excited to speak with you. I've been able to read some of your material. I've been following the newsletter for, I think, 18 months or so. I know you've got a deep expertise in real estate, finance, law, and even marketing, which I think is a really unique thing for a lawyer. So I'm really looking forward to see where that conversation goes. Bruce, to start with, could you just tell me a bit about yourself and Duval and Stachenfeld?
Sure. I've been a real estate lawyer in New York City since 1983, which is a long time to do anything. The law firm that I'm the chairman of now is called Duval and Stachenfeld, almost 25 years old. The thing that's interesting about it is we do one thing. We are a real estate law firm. We're about 50 lawyers. We call ourselves the pure play in real estate law to make it clear to ourselves and our clients this is what we do. We're only about 50 lawyers, but one of the largest real estate law practices in New York City. Our clients do just about everything from ground up development. They buy and sell all different kinds of properties. We represent them in lending and borrowing. We're probably most known for our joint venture / corporate real estate practice, which is everything from simple joint ventures to complicated platforms to opportunity zone funds and pretty much anything else. The thing that is best about our firm and that makes our clients the happiest is really this. When we focus on one thing, the real estate industry, it's a very powerful help to our clients. When you think of the law, being a lawyer, it's what's called a personal service business. And what that means is every client has different needs for its lawyer. However, there's been one thing that we've seen over the years that all of our clients want, every single one. And the irony is it's so rare really that the lawyers deliver it. But every single client we have, no exceptions, wants a lawyer or a law firm that really understands their business. At the end of the day, clients aren't out there to create legal work. They're out there to get something done in the business world. A law firm that understands the business is very valuable. That's the reason why we decided we're going to focus on one thing, which is real estate. And we're all over the industry as well as the legal, and we provide a lot of value to the clients that way. Last thing I'll say is as far as I can tell, we're the only pure play real estate law practice left in New York City. Every other pure play real estate law firm has long ago since been died out, been acquired by a big firm or disintegrated one way or another. We're the only one left. And, being a math guy, if you're the only one, there's only two ways you could be. You're either the smartest or the dumbest. And I, certainly hope that it's the former, but that's where we are today. Anyway, that's a quick summary of the law firm.
And how is it that you personally came into real estate law? What got you started down this path?
Well, when you get right down to it, virtually nobody grows up. When they're asked in high school, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say, astronaut or I don't know, beachcomber, but they don't say real estate lawyer. I still remember the moment when I got into real estate law, because it was just burned into my memory, even though it was just a happenstance at the time. I started my career at a law firm called Shea and Gould, which was a litigation powerhouse. It died off, I don't know, almost 30 years ago now. But I started as a litigator, and I did not like litigation because litigation is kind of fighting over the spoils, and I don't know, it just didn't thrill me. So I guess to be really honest, I hated it. And so I went to the managing partner. I said, "Hey, could I join the corporate department?" And the managing partner, I still remember talking to him, and he said, "Well, Bruce, we don't really need anyone in the corporate department right now, but why don't you join the real estate department?" And I still remember him saying that and me saying exactly these words. I said, "I don't really know what those guys do." And I didn't know what they did, but I joined the real estate department and literally fell in love with it immediately. And it's been, not saying every day has been a day in paradise for my whole career, but I have loved being a real estate lawyer now for, God, it's getting close to 40 years. And that's a long time to do anything.
Yeah, and then it looks like in '97, you and Patrick and Terry decided to branch out on your own. What led to that? What had you kind of decide to put up your own shingle and go your own way?
I would love to say, it was, what your readers probably think is I always wanted to do whatever it was, and this was my big chance to conquer the world. It really was more just running away. When I was at the firm before that, I was at a major law firm called Mayer Brown and Platt. Now I think it's just called Mayer Brown. A very good firm, but I just couldn't make partner there. They didn't need a real estate lawyer, and I was going nowhere. So I fled, before I got fired eventually. I fled Mayer Brown and formed a predecessor firm called Shapiro, Shapsis, Block, and Stachenfeld. I had three good partners, but we really just didn't have the same, kind of business goals. And my practice by then had just exploded. The joint venture area, which is still my bread and butter, 20, I don't even know how many years ago, even today, that's the focus of what we do. It was exploding. We were working around the clock, and we needed to hire people. And I called my friend, Pat Duvall, and I said, Pat, thinking of starting a law firm. You want to do it with me? And you'd think, and Pat were a little more reflective. He would have said, "Can I think about it?" Or can I chat with my wife? Or I don't know. But Pat just said, strangely enough, he said, "Okay." So it's kind of funny. We started the firm in '97. Terry, at the time, was a junior associate, and today it's hard to think of Terry in that capacity because Terry's now the managing partner of the firm, runs everything. And my joke, which is actually true, is she used to work for me. Now I work for her. She's the boss, and I have changed my role to become chairman. And that's kind of the chain of events that led to Duvall and Stackenfeld. So it was kind of just like kind of wandering around, and then we started the firm. And even at the beginning, we were just kind of frantically running around, desperately trying to not screw things up because we had too much business and we didn't have enough people. And over time, we started to get our act together more. Actually, a funny story. I don't want to bore your readers or your listeners, but I do remember the first firm meeting. By the way, am I allowed to swear on this thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
I have two small children. I'm finding it very difficult to curtail that part of my vocabulary, but here is one place where you don't need to worry about it.
All right. It's not that bad, but I remember that I started the firm, and I'm basically running. I'm the managing partner. We've been in business for about 2 months, and we're working 20 hours a day. If you ever saw the movie The Firm, that
Yeah.
guy was not working nearly as hard as we were. And I'm not exaggerating. Every minute I would go to a hotel for an hour's sleep and come back. So somebody says, Bruce, we really should have a firm meeting. And I'm like, oh, why? It's like, we just should. I was like, oh, okay. So we got in a room. There were about, I don't know, 9 of us, 10 of us. And we all sit down at the table. Everyone looks at me. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I realized, like, I'm in charge here. We're having a meeting. And then all I could think of was, well, you should always be honest. Okay. And so I said, I can still remember my words, we're completely, totally fucked, is what I said. And I don't see it getting any better. I think we're just going to get fucked worse. So that's how I started out as a leader. Maybe not the best leadership skills. And I think I panicked everybody, and hopefully I got better over time. But the thing that actually is useful advice, I think, is we did something that was dramatically different from other law firms. In this, we realized a long time ago that clients come and go whether you like it or not. The client could go out of business, or their business needs can change. They may not need you anymore. You can't do anything about that except obviously, try to do a great job and get more clients. But the one thing that you can't afford to lose are your lawyers, because if you lose your lawyers, you have nothing left. So we came up with a mission for the firm, which we call ATR: Attract, Train, Retain Talent. And we realized that it was actually more important to nurture our lawyers, our key people, than it was the clients. And it wasn't that we didn't care about the clients. We love the clients to death. But we kind of followed Starbucks, mission statement, which was employees first, customers second, shareholders third. And we realized we kind of stumbled into that. But once we realized that, it really became the heart of the firm. And it was really the reason we've been, I don't want to jinx it, phenomenally successful. We have super lawyers, which are the backbone of the firm, and are the reason that the clients like the firm. And it's really simple business advice. If you treat your employees, your partners, your team super well, they'll treat your customers even better. And that's really been, if there's any single thing that has really been the heart of our success, I would say that's it.
And early on, I can imagine that notion having some resonance internally, but maybe being difficult to sell and to get the lawyers to hey, I've got a potential new hire. I think he's a real talent. He fits the company culture. Like to bring him in. How do you get them to drink the Kool-Aid on that front end, right? The hiring process to me is always two-way sales. They're selling you, and at the same time, you're trying to sell the vision of the company. On the early days of that, now you've got decades of experience and 40 or 50 people who can vouch for, I suspect, doing what you say. How are you successful in getting people to buy in, or were you?
Oh, how were we? It's a it's a great question. I'm trying to think back in the old days. I mean, at the beginning, we really didn't have ATR. We didn't have our firm values and culture. We were just a bunch of, I don't want to think we're idiots, but a bunch of desperate people, trying to do a great job for our clients. We had too much work. We were just kind of running around frantically. In hindsight, I don't know why anyone would have been foolish enough to have joined us, to be really honest. It's like, why would you come to this place? The guy in charge looks like he hasn't slept in a month, looks like he hasn't shaved, smells like he hasn't bathed. You have to be insane to come here. And I think probably what attracted people, because it's a great question. I haven't really thought about it. I think, I don't know how I sound, but I'm a very genuine person and a lot of passion and love in me. And I think people, felt like there was something good about what I was doing. And then they also looked around and they saw people like Terry and others, and they say, wow, these are some really good people here. And you know what? Maybe things are a little crazy, but this just might be my kind of crazy. And so we ended up getting enough people to join, and then over time we put in place values and our hedgehog, which I could talk about, and then it sort of took off from there. And once you realize we're onto something, it all really became about the people. And as managing partner, I guess I had a good lodestar. I remembered that. Well, actually, one of my partners said to me something like, Bruce, all the assets of this company go down the elevator every night. Your job's to bring them back. And I realized that that was my job more than anything else, was to make it so that the talent at the firm didn't leave. And if I pulled that off, everything would be fine. And I really focused on that during my years as managing partner. Obviously my role has changed as chairman, but that's been the heart of what I did. And as far as way back when, I mean, really honest, I don't know why anyone was nutty enough to join us, but I'm glad it happened.
Your story is bringing back something. I spent a lot of time, in these kind of entrepreneurial circles and kind of working to hone the craft. There's a gentleman out of Canada called Cameron Harold, who is the chief operating officer, kind of COO coach. And he has a video of a guy in a big park live music concert setting who's kind of like out back in the left by himself and just getting down, dancing like crazy. And at first everybody's kind of laughing at him, and there's a few people, and then like one person joins in, and then two people join in, and fast forward 5 minutes later, the entire place is going nuts because one guy started dancing. So it sounds exactly what happened. Bruce is out there, has a vision, has a belief, and got the boogie going, and you got people to join in. Fantastic.
I like that analogy. I'm not sure, the way I dance is pretty pathetic, but maybe you're right.
Well, it fits perfect with the video. I'll send it to you when we're done. It's hilarious. So what's happening in the business now? What are you guys seeing? What challenges are you facing? And perhaps appropriately also separate and distinct, what challenges are your clients facing?
Well, okay. I guess it's the same thing all at the same time. So COVID, hit whatever it was 18 months ago. Business was booming for us and for our clients. Everything was kind of moving along, and then COVID just, beat the heck out of everybody. Most of our clients just stopped doing business. They were. When you think about it, there just wasn't much to do other than, if you were an owner, try to talk your lender into not foreclosing. If you were a tenant, try not to pay rent. If you were this, that, everybody just sort of tried to kind of get through it. And I think what probably people realize that, look, it's temporary. I think we all hoped it was 6 months temporary, and it's now, creeping on to close to 2 years temporary. But everybody realizes we're going to get through it, and it's just a question of time. So for the law firm's perspective, I mean, we make our money when our clients do something, and we get hurt when they don't, because there's nothing to do. So we struggled the last 18 months because business had slowed down. What we should have done is just all, kind of just, laid back, got, into great shape and had a, good time going running or something. But instead, we worked really hard to try to change the outcome as best we could. So starting, I guess it's almost about exactly 90 days ago, it seemed like somebody rang the bell, and it's just about every one of our clients started to get busy and started to do things. Whatever they did before, they're starting to do again, whether it's leasing up their buildings, whether it's buying things, whether it's lending, whether it's developing, whatever. Everything just came on with it with an explosion. And like probably every other law firm in the city, we moved from not enough business to too much business in literally 90 days. The biggest problem that we have today is trying to find superstar people to join the firm. And if any listeners know really fantastic lawyers that want to be part of the pure play in real estate, call me. And that's our biggest challenge. Now, as far as our clients go, and I've been saying this all through COVID in my real estate philosopher articles, COVID is a red herring. Now, it's a big, big, big red herring, of course, but it doesn't really change the nature of the business that people are in. One way or another, you have to have a business that is going to create some sort of value and upside, or you're kind of useless. All right, and there's different ways to create upside. Developers have visions. Mega players like Brookfield and Blackstone have, economic heft. Different parties around the capital stack have different ways of creating value. And if you were able to create value 18 months ago, you should be able to do that going forward. And if you weren't, what might have happened in a weird sort of way, you might have got lucky that you got kicked out of the system and you're not in business anymore. And you now have to do something where you are creating value. Now, the things I see our clients doing now, the areas that are kind of hot, industrial is just off the charts. Obviously, there's been a sea change in retail and how goods and services are provided and distributed, and retail hasn't died out; it's morphed. I don't know. I guess I would say vaguely, it's some sort of combination of distribution or fulfillment, and retail is all morphing into one thing. But a lot of our clients are either developing, buying, or investing in or lending on industrial. I suspect it's the hottest asset class right this second. Probably tied with it is one that wasn't even an asset class really 5 years ago. People were doing it, but it really didn't become like a basic food group. Is what's sometimes called SFHR, or single family home for rent. There has been an absolute feeding frenzy on this among, I don't know, I can't say all of our clients, but a incredibly large number of our clients. And at heart, it's a simple business, right? You buy a home and you rent it. Now, obviously, that doesn't really work economically, but if you buy 100 homes, 500 homes, 1,000 homes, 10,000 homes or something, economies of scale, take hold. And the risk reward is probably really, really good because you own the house. There's a reasonable amount of debt, and you're renting it out, and there's enormous demand, for this. So we've seen an enormous amount of client activity in that area. Clients also still love good old multifamily. They've been buying that a lot. Now, the areas that have been whacked, and the more, I don't know if they were either aggressive, intrepid, creative, whatever souls, are three areas that got hammered over the last 18 months and are now, making various degrees of comeback. One of them is hotels. There was a lot of clients looked to buy hotels. Maybe, I guess I wasn't totally surprised, but not that many transactions happened at first. They're starting to happen now. And the reason probably things didn't happen at first is it was too easy to price it. The hotel was throwing off, $10 million a year, multiplied by 10. The hotel should be worth $100 million pre-COVID. Now there's no hotel guests. It's throwing off zero. It's actually losing $5 million a year. But you do the math, you wait 3 years, it'll be worth $10 million a year again. How much do you discount? Anybody can do the math. And, people were looking for incredible bargains, and the sellers were desperately trying not to do it. So not that much happened in hotels, but hotels now are becoming an area where there's an enormous amount of interest in our clients in buying it. Other areas, retail, what's that famous quote, rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. That's what I would apply to retail. Rumors of its death are greatly exaggerated. People still want to go to stores. And I think really what's happened, and I've written extensively on this in my real estate philosopher, is that stores that really had no reason to exist, sorry to pick on, say, J.C. Penney, but stores that really didn't have any real, reason why they were there anymore, those have died out. But stores where there is a reason, they're doing real well. The most obvious, like the Apple Store. You have to make an appointment now to go to the Apple Store. Technically, that's retail. The last area I'll mention is development. It was a four-letter word. I know it's longer letters than four, but it's pushed in. It was a four-letter word over the last year and a half, but it's starting to come back as people are starting to realize like the locations are not going to die out. People aren't going to like disappear, into the countryside and never be seen again. So development is starting to rebound, and there's a lot of interest in it because it's one of the few areas where if you're good at it, you can outperform. Because it's not so easy to price. Anyway, that's like a big picture, area of what clients are doing, but there's a zillion tendrils that come off of that.
Yeah, and we'll pick into a couple of these, just see where they go. Back in the Great Recession, Colony America and Waypoint Homes and a few others out there that I can't recall the sort of branded names, but Blackstone was one of the big buyers, and same with Colony. And that was, back then it was REO to rental. Now it's, build to rent. But the idea was buying and aggregating single family homes for rental. Back then, the play was very much, distressed assets, take it off their balance sheet, put it on ours. Don't even really worry about cash flow. Meaning, it's going to appreciate back to something close to historical norms. And when you're getting it at a 60% discount, it's not terribly important as to whether or not it's providing a 4, 5, or 6 cap kind of yield on cost. But I didn't think from that time period that build to rent or SFR rentals was an asset class that had any staying power. I thought it was a moment in time, and that as asset prices appreciated and the economies of scale of multifamily came back to normal, that build to rent and SFR rental would die away. I've obviously been proven wrong. That's all by way of background, and wonder if you guys had exposure to that space back in 09 and 2010 when that business was scaling, and what your thoughts on it were back then as opposed to now.
I don't think I'd even heard of this as an asset class until probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So I think the answer is I had no thoughts whatsoever on it because I hadn't heard of it. So sorry if that's not the answer you're looking for.
No, that's fine. And then, you've done a fair bit of writing on being counter-cyclical, and you just touched on retail, which I think is probably as good a asset to pick on and a time period to pick on as any. There's a lot of, just run from retail sentiment in the marketplace. And it seems to be that there are fewer discerning buyers who can appreciate kind of the distinctions you're making. It's a little bit of baby with the bathwater, right? Just no retail. We're not interested. We're not doing retail. And, I'm in the capital markets all the time. And, the sort of synopsis you just gave of like, okay, industrial, B2R, multifamily, and where appropriate, maybe hotel and some development, but no retail is the kind of thing that I'll hear regularly, or no office. And I know you've written about office as well. What are your thoughts about, right now and the opportunity to be countercyclical? Because I think you really do have to have some conviction and some insights to lean into retail. I mean, sure, if we can go buy an Apple store and sell it at a 3 cap, well, yeah, we'll do that. But there's a lot of other stuff on the periphery that I don't think is being appreciated at the moment.
So I have written a whole bunch of articles on retail, and I've had the same theme now. I think it's even pre-COVID that that the word retail is it's kind of got two parts to it, and it almost should have like two names, like old retail and new retail or something. And I was mentioning before, stores that have no particular purpose anymore. I mean, if retail means that you buy it or you lease a location, you have a shelf, somebody puts something, you buy something to stick on the shelf for $1, and then you try to get someone to walk in and pay you $3 for it. If that's all you're doing, I think that's probably a dead business. And sooner or later, it's a dead business if that's all there is to it. I'll call that old retail. Then there's new retail, and new retail is just something that's different. It could be like a store like, I don't know if you've ever been to Untuck It. I mean, it's a little bit
Yes.
of silliness. It's just shirts that they claim are better untucked. They look like shirts to me. The store is packed. People just sort of like the idea, and it's doing really, really well. Go figure that. But new retail, which is something that draws customers in, has some reason that's interesting about it, or a product, or that's maybe exclusive, like the Apple Store or whatnot. These stores can do extremely well. So the reason I think if I were going into the real estate business, I would go into retail is this. Just like you were saying a minute ago, a lot of parties say, well, we do office, we do this, we do that, but we don't do retail. A lot of parties don't do retail. And if you think what that means, it means that they're turning up their nose at new retail because they're afraid of old retail. And I would say that a discerning party that wants to do the old adage, buy low, sell high, could be analyzing retail locations, whether they're basically any kind of retail location, and looking at the type of tenants that are there, and possibly concluding like new retail is fantastic. It's one of the best things you could own. And old retail is something that either has to be repurposed or just closed up. But since so many players are saying, I don't want anything to do with any retail, I think it gives a good risk reward to the parties that are open to it. And I've seen, clients of mine, will not mention names, that I think are the real smart thinkers, the ones that are not like afraid to challenge assumptions. They're going into retail. They're buying things. They're looking for things. They're all over it. So I happen to think retail is possibly one of the best places for somebody that's really, a thinker, an analyzer of data points to be looking at.
And you've also written a bit about New York City, and I know early in COVID you were calling for kind of the power V, and I think it's okay to kind of lump this in somewhat loosely with office, and I think your sentiment was office is not dead, but how do you see both of those asset classes? Because office is also one where pencils down, a lot of people are just we don't know what urban office is going to do. We don't know that we need to be involved in that asset class until there's more clarity. We might see that work from home is going to have a meaningful, lasting impact on structural occupancy rates, et cetera, et cetera. What's your guys' view into that space?
So I've stuck my neck out, way, way out. Okay, like way, way, way out. I've written numerous articles saying that office is not dead; it's just impaired. My book, which is coming out, as you said, next month, my real estate philosopher book. I make a bunch of predictions for the future in the book. I also go back on the articles I've written before, and give some analysis of how they could be used today. But one thing I've been saying all along is the office is not even remotely dead. Sure, people want to work from home. Oh my God, is that like a new idea? I mean, people have been saying that for like ever since there was an office. I'm sure people wanted to work from home, and employers said, no, you can't work from home. You have a job, and it's over here. So, I mean, this is not like some sort of strange thing. Now, right now, of course, because of COVID, everything's topsy turvy. Sooner or later, COVID will end. I mean, it may end that we can't do anything about it, and we got to just live with it. And people die, and that's awful. But what are we going to do? Stay home forever? We can't. So COVID will end at some point, hopefully in a good way, with people being vaccinated and it becoming more like the flu, which we tolerate and have tolerated forever. If you believe that, then it's really a question of push-pull. Employers all want their employees back in the office. I can tell you, our law firm, I mean, the whole point of attract, train, retain talent. Try retaining talent is sitting in a at home 200 miles away from the office. There's no culture. There's no point. There's nothing. There's no reason for any business to exist if it's just a bunch of people flung all over the place. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. Doesn't mean I'm smarter than everybody else, but I just don't see any other outcome than that people will go back to the offices. The change that I do think is something that started before COVID and will keep on going. Is that work from home is something that will gradually grow over time. It used to be maybe you couldn't work from home unless your baby was sick or something, and then a lot of people maybe work from home on a Friday, and so maybe it'll end up that there's, some businesses no work from home, some businesses 1 day a week, others 2 days a week. But I don't really see very many businesses that are going to thrive that don't have a place where people come together and do things. And that's the office. So the worst place for it right now is probably New York City, maybe San Francisco. I don't know it as well, but places where there's real problems like public transportation, maybe a little more emotional panic in some locations than others. Uh, and those places are taking longer than at least I personally predicted to get back in the game. But sooner or later, and I think it's pretty soon, everyone's going to be back. And once everyone is back, if you're not back, you're out of the game. You're sitting by yourself somewhere, and everybody else is thinking, how can we get along without you? You're not here. We don't really care about you anymore. You're gone. So that's my prediction, for what's going to happen. As I said, I stuck my neck out on it, and I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Yeah, and Willie Walker and Peter Linneman on Willie's, he does like a webs, what does he call them? Wednesday webinars, I think. And Peter, the sort of well-renowned economist, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but they sort of say, hey, office isn't dead because we have spouses and we have children. And, I think there's a really valid point to be made that even with the distractions and things that come with the office and the troubles of getting to and from the office and all of that, getting out of the house, getting away from your spouse, getting away from your children, getting into a place where theoretically you can find the headspace to focus and be really productive. I think it all underscores what you're saying, but I do want to go the other direction because I have friends, 80 to 100 person accounting consultancy. They made the decision 100% last year, work from anywhere. They sold the office. Everybody's virtual. They are literally scattered around the country now. People moved to Hawaii, to Florida, to Wyoming. Their business is thriving. And it's not entirely different than yours in terms of being a professional services firm. It's probably less esoteric in that accounting has more, it's either right or it's wrong, and less probably interpretation and creativity than law. But what do you think of those firms? Are they a grand experiment destined to fail, or do you think there's maybe space for both?
I'll bet you $10 that specific firm, don't give its name out, will be non-existent in 5 years.
That's
Just a
great.
guess.
That's interesting.
Look, I may be wrong, of course. There's always like a zillion exceptions that proves the rules, and there's a zillion different ways for a business to thrive. But an accounting firm is similar to a law firm. It's got customers, it's got clients, it's got to get business, it's got to have something that it's providing. Maybe they're lucky they got one mega client that will keep them going, but sooner or later, that client will disappear, because clients do come and go. How are these accountants going to trust each other? How are they going to go out drinking one night and find that one of them's sick and needs help from the other one, and the other one gives the help and they're brothers for life or sisters for life? How are all these things going to happen? The answer is they're not. One guy's in Wyoming, one guy's in Missouri, one guy's in New York. They're a marriage of pure convenience. If any one of them is doing really well in his or her location in Wyoming, all of his friends at other accounting firms in Wyoming are saying, "Hey, man, why don't you come over here? Who the hell are these guys?" And everyone else is your drinking buddy in Wyoming. Why are you staying with a bunch of people you hardly know? And then how are you getting more people? And who would want to join an organization like this? I mean, the only way this thing stays together is if the economics of each person are better than they could be everywhere else. And mathematically, that is not going to happen most likely. So I'd say the odds of that business surviving are low. So that's what I think. Now, I'm wrong a lot. I have to admit that, but I don't see how that business survives.
It's interesting. We'll have to fast forward and we'll talk in 5 years and see. I mean, I won't mention the firm. It's a good friend of mine. I'm very curious about his and others who have made the same sort of executional choices.
There was a law firm. I'm spacing the name, and it did exactly this business model, and it was growing like crazy. Everybody, it was like the greatest thing in the world because the lawyers worked at home. There were no office, no overhead, and they could provide cheaper services to the clients. The clients really liked it, and it was just killing it. And then all of a sudden, it just blew up and disappeared in like 2 days. I forget the name. You can look it up. It was, I guess, pre-COVID. It was not a COVID destruction. So that doesn't prove anything, of course, but I think a business like an Apple or a Google where they own the thing that is being sold, the widget, that has a much better chance of survival with people spread all over than an accounting firm or a law firm or professional services organization where you don't really own anything except the relationships that you have with your partners and with your clients. Anyway, that's my
Hmm.
2 cents on it.
It's super interesting. Not that you own the people, right? Meaning your talent, but if you do own anything, that would be it. And so anything that puts that at risk,
Yeah.
maybe not the best idea.
Yep.
Um, I'm going to go back to some of the areas of practice that you mentioned because the listeners here, many are developers or value add or opportunistic investors. A lot of the work that we do is around joint venture equity. It sounds like that's right over the center of the plate for you in terms of core competence. Um, I'm not exactly sure how to kind of lead into it. I have a lot of experience with raising JV equity. My view of it is that securing debt financing is like getting somebody to go on a single date, maybe even a blind date. It's not that hard. Getting joint venture equity done is like making a marriage, and you've got personalities and very finicky buyers and a very slippery process that's fraught with pitfalls where things can fall apart. Um, Kind of just want to give you the mic, if you will, and let you share whatever thoughts you have around trials and tribulations and pitfalls of JV equity. It's a very esoteric and very difficult space, and it sounds like you've made a strong niche there. So I'm curious what you might want to share.
Sure. Yeah, it is a fat pitch over the plate. So our firms, to the extent we're famous, it's in the joint venture space. Nobody's counted, but I would suspect our firm has handled several thousand joint ventures. I mean, if you figure, I don't know, several hundred a year for 25 years, it gets into the thousands. Um, it is a very, very interesting area because it's tricky. It's just, I liken it to playing chess in the future. And what happens is, one party, either the business person or the lawyer, has done like 2 or 3 ventures. The other party's done like 200. The person with the expertise will take the other one to the cleaners. The other one won't even know it until, God forbid, something goes wrong, and everybody rushes to the documents. And that's when one guy says, pardon my French again, but says, "Oh my God, I'm totally fucked." And the other guy says, "Oh, thank God, everything's in order." And without sounding however we sound, our clients are always the latter because this is our bread and butter. The thing that's interesting about the joint ventures, there's the legal and the business, they blend together. And it really is a bit like a game of assuming things will go wrong in a certain, all different ways, making sure that if they do, you're not victimized. You're not in a position where you're being held up by your counterparty, et cetera. So it's a space my whole firm has built over time. I started it. Terry Adler, as I mentioned, now runs it, and I think it's like 7 partners that really, really, this is the heart of their practice, and it's an enormous competitive advantage for a firm because I'm not saying there's no other firms that can do this, but we really are the best of the best in that space. Now, the other thing that I'll say about the space, and this is something else that we've done that's very powerful, and actually I think of the things your listeners might find the most useful is this. Over time, we developed a special value add to our business model, which is 6 words, and it's this: help our clients grow their business. And this was something that, we started to learn over time that, whether we liked it or not, clients often commoditize lawyers and they say, lawyers are lawyers, they're all the same. They don't really think that. But, there's a lot of that at heart. And what we realized most of our clients, not all, but most of them really want is to figure out how to grow their business successfully. And when we started thinking that way, it was kind of like, an epiphany. And it became really the heart of what we do with our clients. This is the area I personally spearhead. There's two parts to it. Okay, the simpler part is just basically creating, uh, you know, connections between our clients and other clients. The simplest one is, say, one client has a pile of money, and the other client has a deal of some sort, usually a joint venture, and is looking for JV equity to put that deal together. So we just started realizing that, and we started introducing people. The more we did, the more people called, the more it really kind of took off like a flywheel, if you will. And I don't know, nobody's counted up exactly, but somewhere between $3 and $4 billion of deals have come out of just these introductions of people that need capital. And these range from sometimes investments in platforms, actually investments into the sponsor, or they've been investments as preferred equity kind of debt, or they've just been plain old common equity in a simple, straightforward joint venture space. So half of it has been around the idea of just introducing, say, JV equity to a party that needs it. And then the other half of the building business is kind of like a business is at one level, and trying to figure out how to help it get to the next level. And often there's a capital constraint that's needed, either a different kind of financing or a different kind of way to get capital, which could be a JV, it could be a fund, it could be even crowdfunding, which is percolating at a really high pace nowadays. And so the thing that we came up with on that side is what I called a smorgasbord, and it was basically a smorgasbord, so to speak, of different ideas that are not mainstream to get capital to real estate players, whether they're little baby players that just have a gleam in their eyes sitting in the garage with no money, but they have a dream of something amazing, or they're major players trying to get bigger. So all of this swirls around the joint venture space, because the spice, more and more for our clients and for us, is the recognition that you bring one thing to the table. Like, let's say you're a visionary, brilliant developer. You can see things that others can't see, but maybe you don't have a big pile of cash just sitting there, and you have to figure out, well, what is the best way for you to get money? Are you going to raise your own fund? Are you going to just find like a rich party that gives you money? Are you going to go to an opportunity fund or a core fund or a core plus fund or value add fund? Are you looking to a family office, high net worth? Are you going to do a crowd fund? Are you going to get higher leverage? But there's all different ways that you're going to try to figure out how to succeed. And most of the time, unless you're maybe Carlos Slim with a five with $100 billion, just can buy something, you're going to need teammates, and the teammates, one way or another, are joint ventures. So it has been the heart of our practice. It sounds, Kevin, like you've done a lot of this too, and you're right. It is a marriage, because at the end of the day, these two parties, they negotiate their document very carefully, but they are trusting that they're going to be good to each other when something unforeseen happens, which does. And not everything always works out the way people want.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, you just put up like 15 things that we can drill down into, but point of clarification, is it typically the case that your law firm is representing the funds and the folks that may have done 200 JVs, or are you also representing, or maybe it's a proportionality question, that upstart developer who's got the site tied up, he's got a great vision for the product, he's found the right general contracting team, and he just doesn't have the capital to execute?
Well, we started out mostly on the side of the money.
Yeah.
And then over time, it ended up that now it's on all different sides. I'd say it's still maybe 65, 75% on the side of the money and 20, 25% on the side of the sponsor. We realized that since we've done so much on the money side, that we were really by far the best choice for a developer or sponsor.
Absolutely.
We know what every single party has ever given anywhere, and what's market, what's not market, but you can get anyway. Every little trick and angle, how to get basically money from the parties that give you money. And that's a very, very valuable commodity. So more and more, it's getting more and more. It's not 50-50 yet, but my guess is over time, it'll end up half the time we're representing the sponsor and half the time the money. And we completely go both ways. And it's a game. It's like chess in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect analogy. Do you guys play in the space of credit enhancement at all? Because a lot of times what you'll see, well, let's just zoom out. This industry, one of my complaints, observations, however we want to sort of frame this, is that there's an undue, I think, an over focus on what's the net worth and liquidity of the developer sponsor, this in particular for development or any kind of value add or opportunistic deal, and what's their ability to bring accretive debt financing to the benefit of the LP equity, as opposed to WeWork and a guy who's a great salesperson, a great promoter, great visionary. I'm not sure if there was ever a single dollar put in. And that's true in hundreds, if not thousands, of other tech enterprises where it's the team, it's the vision, and there's no capital and there's no liquidity and net worth sort of focus. So I wonder how you guys view that. And then are you ever in the space of doing, credit enhancement to kind of help some of those undercapitalized borrowers get through that part of the business?
You obviously have done a lot in the JV space because you put your finger on one of the trickiest issues, and it's bedeviling. So you're a sponsor, you're trying to do deals, you've got a great development, you got a great project, you got all the pieces. You need it's $100 million deal, you want to borrow 60 million. You're going to get 40 million of equity. You scrape together the 4 million somehow, and somebody else is going to give you 36 million on a 90-10 say joint venture. It's all beautiful. Okay, but now the lender says, well, you're building this thing. I need a completion guarantee. I need a bad acts guarantee. I need all different kinds of guarantees. And the poor developer's like, well, yeah, I'll give you that. And the lender's like, whoa, wait a minute. You need to have a $50 million net worth or this is going to work. The guy's like, I just starting out. I don't have $50 million. What am I going to do? So yes, that is a problem that percolates all over the place. Now, if you think about it, it's another game, if you will. And, recourse is a hot potato. As lawyers, I always advise my clients by far the number one issue. If you're the lender, insist on it. If you're the borrower, do everything you can to get out of it. Okay. So, it is the most critical issue. Now, if the developer just doesn't have the credit support and the lender, is just not moving, well, think about it. There's only really two outcomes. One of them is the deal's dead, and the other one is the LP has to step in there. Okay. So the LP is going to say, okay, I will put up the guarantee. So what does that mean? Well, the LP is saying, well, wait a minute, I'm going to be taking it out of your hide, Mr. Sponsor. How can they take it out of their hide? Well, sometimes the LP will say they want better economic terms because they're saying to the sponsor, look, without our credit, this deal doesn't go anywhere. You have this promote. Your promote should be worse now because we're the ones that are basically putting our credit on the line for your promote. Okay. In addition, the LP might say something like, well, wait a minute. If I'm putting this guarantee there, I need to have control of the joint venture. The last thing I can have is I'm the schmuck. Sorry if that's a swear word too. I'm the schmuck on the hook to the lender and you're running the show. Sorry, Charlie, that is not going to happen. So those are the kinds of things that go on. And of course, the sponsor's not just going to roll over on those issues. It's like, well, wait a minute. You think you're so cool, Mr. LP, but without me, this deal wouldn't have happened. I figured the whole thing out. I put it all together, created all this upside. And you know what? There's a lot of other LPs out there that are not going to beat me up so much. Anyway, the games begin, and there's three parties playing: the sponsor, the investor, and the lender. And as you rightly put your finger on, this is a real issue for the developer that does not have a huge net worth to stand behind these guarantees.
Yeah, you've definitely spent a lot of time here. So somewhat tangential because you've written about this as well. Um, what is happening, I think, at the fund level, and in particular the mega funds, which seems to be kind of there are fewer and fewer players that are larger and larger, is that career risk, and this is in my words, but something I know have written about, is driving decisions into a sort of predictable and uniform direction. And everybody's buying IBM, which is to say industrial, build to rent, multifamily. Everybody's using the conventional structures because the downside for this professional money manager who hasn't invested any capital here but has an incentive compensation structure is they lose their job. The upside is, well, you did what you were supposed to do. And to me, when you see this sort of homogenization and rarefication of, if there are fewer investors doing larger deals that look more and more similar over time, it becomes very difficult to get the kinds of things we're talking about done, whether it's a smaller deal with an emerging manager who's lacking on the balance sheet net worth and liquidity, or it's a little bit edgy in terms of the location, or maybe it's even a tertiary market where you actually have enough data to prove that, hey, it makes sense to build something in Spokane, because I'm just making this up, because there hasn't been a multifamily apartment built for 30 years. Let's do it. But all of those things, as they deviate from the middle of the fairway, become a lot harder to get done. I just wonder, what do you see in that space? What do you think of it? I mean, we're talking about being somewhat counter-cyclical. Like, to me, this is really obvious. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I think the stat is 50% of the buildings in the country are 50,000 feet and less. Well, that means 85% of the funds out there aren't ever going to touch them because they're too small and they can't write a big enough check.
Okay, I'm not totally sure what you're,
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a question there. I just am
but
seeing.
I do. Well, look, one of the, maybe this is the interesting part of what you're talking about. And I don't take credit for this. The guy named Howard Marks of, I think it's Oak Tree,
Yeah.
really, really brilliant guy, has written some very interesting books. But I think where you're heading on this is that what he says is, the first thing that any player in the real estate business, or maybe any business should decide is, do you wish to outperform? And if you think about it, everyone might, oh, of course I wish to outperform. Well, wait a minute. When you think about what does outperform mean, it means outperform the average. Okay. And how do you outperform the average? Well, the thing you have to do to outperform the average is you have to be different from the average, right? Because the whole point of the average, it's like buying an index fund in the stock market. You're saying, look, I don't want to underperform and take away the risk of or the upside of outperforming, because I just want to be average and not take any real risk of deviating from that. But once you said, I wish to outperform, you now take the risk that you might underperform because you're different. And there's only two mathematical outcomes: outperformance or underperformance. So then Howard leads you through the thinking. Well, once you've decided to do that, what are the implications? Well, as you were just saying a minute ago, if you outperform, you'll probably get a bigger bonus, hug from your husband or your wife and feel pretty good about it. But what happens if you underperform? Your business folds, you're out of a job. I mean, it could be horrible. And if you start thinking about the risk and the reward, the bonus and the hug is not as much good as losing your job is on the bad side. So you might say, not only yourself personally, but the company that you work for might say, we don't wish to take the risk of outperforming. We want to be 100% sure we're average because everything will be fine. And if you have a wealth manager, that's what he or she is saying to you right now. Okay, they don't want you to get pissed because they underperform, because then you'll take away their money. Instead, they want to convince you that average performance is where it should be. So now in real estate, I think it's heading that way. And the reason I think it's heading that way is I think it's now 3 years ago, maybe four, real estate became a separate asset class, whatever that
Yeah.
even means. It used
Yep.
to be
2015. It was
okay.
2015. I remember it. Yeah.
Okay. Used to be stocks and bonds and alternatives. which is like gold and stuff. And real estate was part of alternatives. And that meant your wealth manager says to you, well, Charlie, you should have 40% in bonds and 50% in stocks and 10% in alternatives. And he would look at you knowingly and you'd say, sounds good to me. And then he would tell you, well, the alternatives are a basket. Usually that's the word, a basket of blah, 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 of which 6% of the 10% is in real estate. And you're like, I don't know what the hell that is, but all right, fine, buy some real estate, which was probably a public REIT or something like that. Now, when it became a separate asset class, your wealth manager says to you now, it's like, well, Charlie, 40% stocks, 40% bonds, 10% in alternatives in a basket, and 10% in real estate. And you're like, oh, real estate, huh? Well, what does that actually mean? Well, then you start thinking, well, what does somebody that really doesn't know about real estate, like where are they going to put their money? Well, they're probably going to put their money in something that throws off a steady cash flow so that it's just fine. All right. They're not going to be buying a development project with risks and rewards. They're going to buy Blackstone's B REIT that's going to throw off 6 or 7%, super safe, and there's nothing wrong with it. Or they're going to buy, Vornado, a publicly traded REIT. They're going to buy something like that for diversification purposes. So where I see the real estate industry heading is sort of not so different from the stock market. Over the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, you're going to see a lot of what you might call index funds ish kinds of things in the real estate space. And you're already seeing more and more of that. And then there'll be the parties like the developers, the visionaries, the thinkers, the creators. What they will be doing is, buying those little buildings that you just mentioned, maybe buying 5 or 10 or 20 of them, packaging them up, and then selling them once they're all done into these diversification purchasers. So the advice to the people, say, listening here is one thing you don't want to be doing is fighting with the diversification players, because they're going to have a different risk reward profile for their money. They're going to want average performance. They'll take lower returns. You will not be able to get cheaper capital, say to them. So you don't want to be fighting with them for deals, because you're going to lose. They'll pay more than you will. But instead, what you should be doing is figuring out how to either manage that money, raise money from these diversification purchases, put it together, get good fees, or sell to those diversification purchasers, because they will be the ones paying the top dollar on the development that you created and crafted. And it's a little long-winded, but I think that's sort of targeted towards where I think you were heading with your question.
No, it's exactly where I was going. And you've also written about finding deals versus creating deals, right? And I think the point you're sort of, well, it comes into focus here as well. If you're out on CoStar or LoopNet or your local MLS system and you go, oh, look, a hotel, let's see what we can get it for. Well, it's going to price to perfection. You're not going to find anything even remotely near above average returns, and you might argue that because it's so widely distributed, you're going to find below average returns. This ties into some of what you've written, I think, in finding ways to create deals. Maybe, for example, this, I've never thought of this until right now, it's laundromats. Maybe you're going to go buy and aggregate 600 laundromats because Blackstone would be happy to have that diversification in their REIT at a 4.5 cap, because that's what they're selling into the public markets for that guy who's doing, 60% bonds, 30% or 20% stocks, and 10% real estate and 10% other, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Yep.
yeah. I'm going to back up a little bit, and I really appreciate the mission of Duvall and Stachenfeld to help our clients grow their business. I know you have some affinity. Well, first of all, you've written a book about power niches and creating monopoly power in kind of a tight vertical. It appears you might also be a Jim Collins fan who has, gone into great length to explain the hedgehog. I'm wondering if your mission is tied into a vision and a core values, and how Jim Collins also might inform the thinking and leadership from the early days of we're completely effed to, now we've got a mission. Does that also go with vision and core values? Do you guys know your hedgehog? How does all that tie in? Because my sense from kind of picking at the edges is that you're pretty steeped in all of that.
It's funny you bring back memories. So, as I said at the beginning, we were roaming the plains, frantically trying to survive through the misery that I don't know why. I actually did it before the firm started. I'd written down a statement of values for a law firm, and it was very emotional and lovey-dovey, touchy-feely, if you will. I actually wrote it before the firm even started. Lawyers are entitled to respect, do the right thing even when it hurts, things like that. And I'd written these things down. And when we started the firm, maybe after my first firm meeting, I had said, we really should look at these values and talk about them and adopt them for our own or change them, and everybody should have input, yada, yada, yada. And everybody was like, oh, it sounds like a great idea. And then we all got busy. And so the values got thrown in a drawer. Fast forward about 3 or 4 more years, I think it was like 2000. It was probably, I don't even know what it was, like 2002 or 3 or 4. I stumbled upon a book called Built to Last by Jim Collins. And it talked about, what he calls visionary companies that outperform for long periods of time. And there's all sorts of stuff in there. But one of the things he says is that visionary companies have values. They have a statement of purpose that's different from, we'll just try to make money and see what happens. They have some reason to exist that's kind of cool. So I'm like, oh my God, we have values. We must be a visionary company. Oh my God, oh my God. So it's pretty much exactly what happened. So I inflicted the book on the whole firm. This is when people would still do what I said. They won't listen to me anymore. But in the old days, if I said something, they would do it. So I forced everyone in the firm who was there and everyone who joined the firm to read Built to Last. And then, we spent a lot of time. I can't remember the exact year, probably 2005-ish or something. We spent a zillion hours on our statement of values and purpose and everything else. And it's still on the website. And we really created our constitution for what the firm was going to be about. And this is the heart and soul of the firm. It's all touchy-feely, singing kumbaya, drinking Kool-Aid, pick your metaphor. But it was our reason to exist through the financial crisis, through COVID, through everything else. And there was something special that people want to be at the firm. Why? I mean, everyone may have a different reason, but there's something that feels good about it. And that good feeling, is from the values. Somehow it resonates and it talks to people. That's kind of part of it. And then the other thing was the hedgehog principle, which Jim Collins talks about in Good to Great. And the hedgehog principle, that he talks about is great companies, he say, figure out what is their hedgehog principle. He defines 3 characteristics for a hedgehog principle. It has to be something that drives your economic engine, something you're passionate about, and something you could be the best in the world at. And I'm going to add a 4th, even though Jim Collins probably has his reason for not. But the 4th, I would say, is you don't decree it, you find it because it's already there. Like you already have something and you look inside and you say, wow, that's what it is. And it's been there all along. You discover it. And our hedgehog principle, we realized was, maybe to our surprise, that we seem to care about people. If somebody's cat is sick, the whole firm's in mourning. We look out for our clients, help them build their business. We're the ones that if the client literally their business folds, they come to office with us till we can help them either start a new business or find a new job. We care. And so we said, is that a hedgehog principle? And we thought about it. Yeah, it is what drives the economic engine because it's what keeps the lawyers and the clients here. Are we passionate about it? You bet we are. We have hedgehog committees. All clients get hedgehogs. It's like all we talk about. Are we the best in the world at it? I don't know if we could say that, but it is what we are. And the hedgehog principle, which is evidenced by a hedgehog, I can't show you because this is a oral podcast rather than a video. But every client gets a little cute little hedgehog. If you look on the website, it's right there. And we say to them, look, this is your hedgehog, and it's really a commitment that we're going to look out for you, obviously in good times, but even more in bad times. If things go wrong for you, we're going to be there 100,000% of the way. And the clients, they laugh, they make fun of the stuffed animal and everything, but they also know that it's very sincere and it's very special and very powerful. So yes, I'm a Jim Collins fan. There's no question. I have all of his books autographed because one of my friends is friends with him. And if you ever come to the office, you can see the books, see the hedgehogs, and have some fun.
How else do you guys practice those core values and kind of getting them into the zeitgeist, if you will? It's one thing to put them on a website and say, oh, these are our core values, but it's another Well, I'm reflecting on Tony Hsieh, Zappos, and I believe they have like 22, which seems exhausting. But it's on the name sort of badges and key card access for all of his employees. And, I think they had some sort of recurring events and quizzes and things where people just, you kind of had to know the core values. How do you guys get them from this sort of, well, look, you're self-titled the real estate philosopher, right? A lot of philosophy is never put into practice because it's fairly esoteric. How do you bring it to ground? How do you get it to be living in your team?
It's a really good question. It's very, very, very hard. And if it's anything that, I kind of think we could be better at, it is that. The values become more important with, when things are going badly. People realize that, look, this is what, keeps the lifeboat afloat, if you will. But there's really there's no, simple, well, I guess there is a simple thing. For the values to flourish, the most senior people at the company have to be absolutely passionate about it. They have to live by them, not 99% of the time, but 100% of the time. I mean, or do the right thing even when it hurts. Do the wrong thing just once, it's game over. Uh, Other people have to participate in that and have to be uh, not just listening, but participating in it as well. You have to talk about it all the time. The Zappas, Zappos, I think I read about, key cards, just things that make it clear, like it's everywhere here. This is what matters. Management has to be behind it and reward it, or the opposite. People that don't fit with the values have to leave the company. They just can't stay and mess it up for others. I mean, it's got to really be the whole ethos of the place, and it has to be recognized that it's the most important thing. And the way I put it, without the values, we're 50 lawyers sharing office space till somebody gets a better offer. That's it.
Mm,
There's nothing else that really matters. Like, why are we together? Like you asked before, what do I own as a lawyer? Oh, I mean, all we really own is the desire of other people to stick around the firm, right? I mean, that's it. Or they go down the elevator and don't come back. So the values are absolutely critical, but it's a huge commitment of the management to live by them, talk about them, espouse them, pound away at them, and even drive people nuts over them. And then everybody starts to realize, like, wow, we're serious about this. And they don't even realize it, but they're so proud of it themselves because they recognize that, when the partners are meeting, it's not meeting how to screw people. It's how to do the right thing, even when it hurts 100% of the time. And they're proud to work there. And then they're thrilled. And then it kind of, becomes this big growing love bomb. I don't know. I know I'm being a little,
no, it's actually all on point. And I have a question. I don't want it to be too leading. I think you said you have 6 or 7 people who are uh, really excellent and committed to joint venture equity. And, you're talking about having, to a certain extent, kind of a heart-centric legal practice. I'm curious how the personalities of the people who are in the JV arena align or misalign with that. Are they tacticians or are they relational? How do they show up in that space? I don't want to tease it out too much because I'm just curious what kind of people excel in putting together joint venture
both.
equity.
Both. It's really difficult. It has to be absolutely both. You have to
Yeah.
be. You have to be. I'm not sure it's a question of brilliance, but you have to be able to play chess in the future and figure out like everything that could possibly go wrong and make sure you've covered it and protected your client. At the same time, you have to be a relationship guy or gal because if you're basically a dick, okay, and you're obnoxious, rude, condescending, or other unpleasant behaviors to the other side, that gets translated into the belief that, well, your client is probably the same way. I mean, they hired a dick. The client must be a dick. I'm trusting these guys to do business with, and I think I'm doing business with a dick. I don't like this. This is not a good feeling for me. So if you're not a relationship person, you blow it. Instead,
Yeah.
it's kind of like if just the way of saying no, when the other side asks for something that you can't give or your client can't give. I mean, the obnoxious way is to say nope, next issue. I mean, which is humiliating to the other side, and relationship way to say is, look, I understand why you want that. And you know what? When I'm on your side, I really push hard for it myself because I know how important it is to you. We can't quite give you that, but here's something that we could give you that I think could be helpful to you. So the second is makes the other person respected, feel really good, and recognize that we're trying to be harmonious together. And the first one is more like, I'm going to stamp you out like an ant and treat you with contempt. And so it is, both skill sets are critical. I'm proud to say that my partners who've made it through the training and everything else, they all have that in depth, or our clients wouldn't want to have anything to do with it. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought you would say. I was hoping you would just stumble into it, which I think you did. To me, that is the heart of placing joint venture equity. Everybody can get through the chess, the technical part. And in fact, this could be a segue into artificial intelligence, which I know you've also written about. Look, I've got in our Salesforce database, every time we put a project against a capital source, it's a unique member of the database. We're just about approaching 10,000 connections between, capital X, Y, and Z on project Q and all the other projects we've worked on. So there's starting to be an abundance of data, probably nowhere near enough for sort of regression algorithms and things like that to begin to fill in the blanks. But what I see is that your response of, hey, I understand what you're asking for. And in fact, when I'm on your side, I ask for the same thing, but let me help you understand how that's going to land for my client. Those kinds of emotional intelligence, those kinds of personal interactions just seem like 100% front and center core value proposition to getting these kinds of things done. So branching off of that, artificial intelligence, what are your views of the things that might be out there that would put you out of a job, that would put me out of a job? I'm the marriage maker. You're the guy that actually has to make the documents work.
Artificial intelligence. That's a really good question. The irony, my daughter works at Google in their DeepMind division in London, which is one of the top AI places on the planet. And we talk about artificial intelligence all the time. Now, from the lawyer's perspective, it's probably good. We'll probably be one of the last areas to be supplanted by artificial intelligence, because it's all about thinking, creating, and bobbing and weaving. It's you would hope that AI will have a ways to go before they replace us lawyers. On the real estate side, it's interesting. There are players that are starting to try to figure out how to do it. It's starting out with as much, machine learning or artificial intelligence, it depends on algorithms and multiplying things that look similar to create, predictions about things that will happen. I would guess that, companies like a Zillow and things like that are probably the best examples of AI-based business, because there's millions and millions of houses. You keep plugging them in, and every single house, I'm sure Zillow's wrong on, but it's probably close enough that people can start relying on it. So now you start thinking about the commercial space. And I do have clients that are starting to do this. What they're doing is they're trying to buy very small pieces of property. Like you mentioned earlier, buildings that are smaller than, say, 50,000 feet, they trade for what, 500,000 to 10 million, depending on where they're located or something like that. And they don't really fit the bill very easily for clients with money or developers or everything else, because they're just too small, and the transaction costs and everything else wipe out the upside. However, if you're using AI and you're saying, well, you know what, we're going to buy 500 little buildings that cost $2 million each, that's $1 billion. And we're going to do virtually no diligence on any of them, except maybe get an environmental report, make sure it's not on a Superfund site. We're just going to buy it. Okay. And we know statistically that, it's probably worth $1 billion too as an aggregate, but each location we really can't tell. Those are the kinds of things where AI is going to be very, very valuable in terms of kind of assessing, probabilities and looking at things. And I think you'll see a lot of that. I would suspect AI will have the least impact, where you would think, which is like development. I don't know how AI helps a developer. Maybe it helps in reducing costs or something, but the whole idea of figuring out, like, there's this building and that can be built here if we tear down that building, and there's a politician that hates it and this guy likes it, and yelling and shouting at that guy and begging and pleading here. And, who the hell knows how you get that project going? I don't think AI does much in that area.
Yeah, that's great. So look, I know we've got a hard stop coming up, so I'm going to give you a swing. If you've got something you'd like to leave, with a mission of helping your clients build their businesses, you're obviously working with the entrepreneurial set on a fairly regular basis, whether they're bootstrapped or entrepreneurs within a much larger organization. Any message you want to send out there for the entrepreneurs listening in?
Sure.
Feel
I have two messages. First, buy my book. It sounds like a joke, but
perfect.
it's not. It's a really good book, and I'm not just saying that. It's really got all my brain power in one place. And I think especially if you're starting out or you've been around a long time, what I try to do is really think about things and challenge accepted assumptions and try to come to different conclusions that are useful. And I think you've been very smart here in teasing them out of me. But I do think it is a unique book. There's nothing else remotely like it in the real estate world. It's great for your son or daughter that's thinking of real estate, and it's great for you if you're the CEO of your business, just thinking about like what to do and whatnot. The other message is if you're a sponsor out there and you're looking for capital of pretty much any kind, call me. I have a very, very large number of clients with capital, all different kinds, little family offices writing small checks of a few million, sovereign wealth funds writing checks of several hundred million, and everything in between. There may be a really nice connection that could be made.
That's great. Bruce, thank you so much for taking the time. If you want to reference the website, any other place where folks might pick up the upcoming book, The Real Estate Philosopher's Guide, anything like that, feel free to offer that up, and then we can give it a wrap.
Okay. Well, look, thanks so much for having me. I hope some of the things I said were useful to your listeners. And I'm honored very sincerely for being here. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce, and thanks to all the listeners. And I have to say this: if you like the podcast, get out there and give it a review. That seems to be the catalyst that grows things. Thanks again, Bruce. I appreciate your time.
All right. Have a great afternoon.